are just a bit dry. So it's Tuesday again, and we're back. So I've got a lot of stuff to catch up with you. If my voice sounds a bit weird, I've not been very well, and I've got really scratchy throat and everything. So yeah, if I start coughing or whatever, that's all it is. I'm kind of recovering, but yeah, I really wasn't very good at the weekend at all. I'm slowly feeling a bit better. But yeah, so last week I went through the fake skin with you. What is it? You know, what does it look like? What does it feel like? The brand that I recommended, etc. And what I don't recommend with it. I showed you quickly how you would apply not a stencil as you would in the studio, but how the carbon paper works, especially because I did hand stenciling, how that would work. So if you missed any of that, I do actually save the streams onto my YouTube channel, which should be in the information for this stream. So check that out if you want to have a look. So I did promise that I would find some of my now quite old pieces of the fake skin, which is the brand Real Skin that I use, and also I've got some of that with me now, and I've got some of the original pieces that I did on the one that's not very good. So I did meant to have these last week, but yeah, I couldn't find them, so I've got them now, so we'll just go through that now. These were, actually, should I organise it? I'll show you first, 1 second. So some of this is done with my machine, and some of this is just a couple of bits with a stencil on. You'll see that the stencils stain, especially as I've just kind of stacked these up together to store, so it's not the best way to store them. I would recommend, if it's a piece that you really like, frame it or something, because like we saw in last week, they do degenerate and degrade over time, so they will actually rip just like you saw before, or you'll get stencil transfers that I'll show you in a minute from one to the other. But I'm just organising these into ones that I've done with my machine, ones that I've done by hand, etc. 1 second, because I just kind of grabbed the whole pile, and I will show you them very quickly. Some practice pieces that I've done. Let's say that one goes there, and just tell you what went well with them, what went wrong, that kind of thing. So the very first one that I did was on the fake skin that I showed you last week, was very thin and I didn't recommend. So that one goes very stiff over time. It doesn't seem, to be fair, to degrade like the Real Skin one does. So the Real Skin one last week, where I'd stored it folded, that fold had, you can probably see it on some of these today, like sort of crease marks, but then if you were to open them out, they would look like little rips, and then if you were to pull it, it would rip apart. Whereas the old thin type of fake skin that isn't great to work on, for some reason just kind of lasts a little bit better. But this first one I'm going to show you is the old type of fake skin that I got, that's too thin really. It has bubbled and everything. I'll show you the bubbly texture. And on this one is when I first started to teach myself to tattoo. I was doing hand poking, so basically it's where you get a needle and by hand you just kind of like poke the skin, and instead of a machine. So as you can see, that it has bubbled up over time and warped, and this stains very badly, very badly. So look, you can see it even comes through to the back. It's not very good. But yeah, you'll see on the front now that it's stained really badly. It does not clean off very well at all. But these are all the ones that I did by hand at first, and you can just see a few there. So we've got a soot sprite, and we've got calcifer. There was an idea that I did, I wanted to do two, and I wanted to do obviously colourful calcifer, which with this staining It's sort of, the black has discoloured all of the bright colours that I did have on there, so it's not very good, but the blue's sort of stuck. I did some clouds, nose, a triforce, lips, a blueberry, snake, match, triforce again. I think, yeah, the bottom was my first attempt at triforce, and then this one was my second attempt. And just things like leaves and a moon and that kind of thing. I just did them by hand, so I was just practicing. Didn't really have any experience doing any kind of tattoo at all, really. So these were my very first practice pieces by hand. Very different from using a machine. When you do it by hand, you can be very steady. It is very slow, but you can be very, very steady. When you use a machine, your hand is shaking a lot and you're fighting against that. So that might look, some pieces on there, really good sort of lines and things like that, but if I was to do it with a machine straight away, they would look very different because your hand's shaking so much. That was the first piece, and then I went onto the real skin, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to practice doing things like circles, lines, little triangles, things like that, just practicing mark making essentially. So I got the offcuts bag, value bag from Real Skin, so you get lots of random pieces, and I've actually been told by the guys in the studio that I actually have some fairly good pieces from that, because mine were a lot of rectangles and squares, and some ones that other people have got have been literally like, they look like they've had bits ripped off, like, you know, well, not like that, but not even pieces anyway. So yeah, this is one that I did where I just did just a lot of mark making on, and again, this one was by hand originally, and then I began to use my machine, so this one's a mixture of both. If you can see it quite well there, I redid the match, but yeah, it's just a really just beginner's, really rough sort of attempt at some lines and that. And then on the back I just practice with some just sort of like shading things, just really, really quick. And then at the bottom I reused the bottom of this piece for another piece that I'll show you later on, because it actually goes with that. And then in no particular order, because I cannot remember which way around I did these, this is kind of degraded now, so it's got the rips on it there, if you can see, over time, and it's also got staining from another stencil that must have been sat on top of it while I just had the pile of them stored for over the year and that. But this was basically, it's like a match with calcifer on the top, and I believe I did that with my machine, but one of my very first ones, so not very good. So that's that one. And then I also did, I redid my match with, this was the first proper one with my machine, and in the top corner I've practiced there, I'll show you first. Practice some mark making, just some flicks and things. If you can see, possibly, it's shining on it a bit much. It's not very clear, is it? But I think it's called whip shading. I'm still learning all the terms for it because there's slightly different versions. I wonder if I can change this light 1 minute. I'll just do that. Is that a bit better for you? Anyway, but yeah, this was the first proper piece I did with my machine on the fake skin, and it's just a match. I'm just practicing my lines and colouring it in and everything. I quite liked doing that one. I would like to do, I did a whole flash sheet of matches, and I would like to tattoo some of them properly at some point. I suppose it's now, looking at a lot of what people have done, it's a fairly common one, or has been a common subject to do, but I would still like to do it. If you've been on some of my old streams or on my Instagram and you've looked on the Reels section, you'll see videos of me flicking through a Flash Designs book. So this is one of the designs from that with fake skin, it is sometimes very difficult to get the stencil to stick, and sometimes it's very difficult to get it off if it does stick too well. So it can go either way to the extreme. And this is one in particular where it has degraded over time, so again it looks like it's got rips in it, but apart from that it's not too bad. But the stencil, I couldn't get the stencil off, it stuck way too well, and it just makes the whole thing look really dark. So this is No Face, and it was supposed to be on some clouds with some gold coins and everything, but the colours haven't lasted very well, and as you can see it looks very dark. And the reason why it looks dark on where all the outlines would be is because the stencil has taken way too well and it has not come off, so it's kind of ruined it. But it's fine, it's only a practice piece for doing lines. In terms of lines though, apart from it being quite degraded, you can see that the line work isn't too bad. It's not a great piece, but the line work isn't too bad. The next one I did was just a few random pieces, some from my flash, some from me just playing around. So this skull is like an egg skull, alien kind of egg skull. I would like to redo. That was from a flash piece I did, another little soot sprite, another snake, and just sort of like a cross, but I did that like just flicking like I was sketching or painting, you know, like just flicking with it. It wasn't coloured in, it was done with that technique. So as you can see there, and then we move on to it's the same image done 4 times as I was practicing a piece from my flash again. So the first piece I did, and you can tell again with these that the stencil has not been very easy to remove. For some reason it's very 50-50 if your stencil sticks very well or if you just can't get it off with fake skin. But at least with this fake skin it does come off a little bit easier than the original thin one that I showed you, which is, I just do not recommend. So this is just the stencil that I did on some fake skin. So that actually hasn't been tattooed, so I may actually go back at some point and go over that. But I feel like the stencil has been on it for that long that now that will not be easy to remove. It's been on for well over a year, so that is not coming off. If I can lighten that quite a bit before I tattoo it for practice, then I may go over it. If not, I don't know if there's much point, at least for a proper finished show piece, as it will just do the same as what the one with No Face did, and it will just darken the whole thing. So my first attempt was this one, and for some reason it just went really blurry. It just went very, very blurry. It wasn't very good. I didn't like it, so I redid it as my second attempt, which was this one, and again I just kind of, it was better. I didn't like it, so I redid it again, and then this was the final one that I did just as a quick practice for that one. I think it came out a lot better. But they're just random pieces that I took from my flash that I decided to do. Over here is where accidentally part of, in the pile, as you can see, this is folded, which I'm really sad about because I wanted to keep it nice, and a piece of a stencil has actually just imprinted itself over time on there. That is not coming off. Good job it's on the back though. And yeah, with it being folded, now that I've straightened it out, it does have some kind of sort of like, if you look, tears, because it just degrades over time, and I'm really sad because I liked this one as well. But yeah, see if you're a Destiny fan, if you can tell me whose symbol that is. I'll just give you a little bit of time and then I'll tell you. This is from a piece that I actually did do whilst learning. This belongs to someone. their design. Well, I designed it, but you know, it's based off a character's symbol in a game. But I like this, I drew it up. And the idea with this is that it was all glowy colours and everything. So yeah, if you play Destiny, this is Savathun's, also known as the Witch Queen, her symbol. Yeah. And because it's part of the, if I remember, like the hive, they have a lot of glowy stuff, glowy crystals, green glowy stuff. So that was the idea with that one. But yeah, I'm really sad about this. I'm going to see if there's a way where I can't repair the tears, but if I can not really mess with it much and flatten it and frame it after I've cleaned it up a bit, hopefully I can keep hold of this one. I really like this one. But yeah, that's all the, I do have some more somewhere, but I couldn't find them, but that's all the practice pieces that I could find to show you. It is quite weighty with this stuff, so I'm going to just put them to one side. Just need a drink, sorry my throat's going dry. Right, so also last week I said we'd do a catch up as usual, and then I'd go through some questions that I've been sent on here and on my Instagram and so on. Some questions that also that I get asked by people that I see just out and about, people at work, that kind of thing. So I've combined a few of them together and I've noted them down in my sketchbook, so I'll go through them with you. I just wanted to show you this though, as a catch up. Last Friday I took my extra pieces of real skin, the fake skin, into the studio, and I had some, if you've been following, you've been seeing the Pokemon designs that I've been doing, and my mentor lent me his iPad to sort of turn my pencil drawings or pen and all that in digitally so that he could then print some of these off. So these are just, there's only the two designs really. Oops. There's only, he didn't do all three designs. He didn't do my favourite one. I think he thinks it might be too difficult for me to practice with, but that's the point in it, so that you can practice. So out of the all three designs that I did, that I showed you last week, these are my least favourite, and my favourite one never got turned into a stencil. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, next time and I actually get to do it. If not, at some point I'm going to do it myself. But yeah, so these two, I'm trying to remember if that's actually, yeah, that's correct, way around, because it actually, actually I'll see if you can tell, right? So let me just find one here. Oops. And a similar size one here. Okay, and let me just, because I'm looking at it from behind, let me just not get confused a minute. Right. Okay, so out of this Pikachu design, can you tell which one is wrong? The designs are identical. It's not about features of the design, but these are printed stencils, okay? Which one is the right one to use and which one is the wrong one to use? I'll give you a minute, just in case you're watching this back. Okay, as I'm holding them, it may look wrong to you in reverse, but this one is actually the correct one, because the side that's facing you is the side with the carbon on. So this one actually then goes onto the skin, and then when you peel it off, you can see the back of it there. It'll be that way around, but as I'm looking at the screen, this now looks back to front to me. But just so you know, the end of his tail is supposed to, as you're looking at the art piece, is supposed to point to your left. So if it's back to front in the video, I don't think it will be, but if it is, then that's the way that it's supposed to face. But yes, my mentor printed these out for me, and I was about to put a stencil on the fake skin, and then I realised, wait a minute, that looks wrong because it looks the correct way around. And that was actually a good learning moment, because he didn't realise that he'd done that, or if he did, he was testing me. Either way, it had to be redone, and then you have to flip your design, mirror image it, like reverse it, to print your stencil out in reverse, so then when you actually put it on the skin it turns out the right way around. But yeah, as you can see, the paper that is used, there's different ways, like I said last week, of printing a stencil. There's thermal printing, which is where you get like receipts from the shop. It's heat activated paper essentially, so the heat will create the design, and then that is also pressed through to the carbon. But then there's also ones that print like an actual printer, so instead of ink you have the carbon fluid, and this is one of those ones that they've got in the studio. So it's not printer paper and it's not a tracing paper, it's more like a stiff tissue paper that's used. Because I'm just showing you because I know maybe some people won't get to see this or don't realise, or you know, you don't, even when you're having a tattoo you don't get to have a really good close-up look. So I'm sharing this with you because this is the kind of stuff that would have helped me learning, so and does help me learning. So as you can see, it is, and you can probably hear it crinkling away, it's like a tissue paper, you can sort of see the light through it, but it's like a stiff tissue paper. So when this is wet it goes very, very flexible, so you can peel it off, but it's not thin enough. You can rip it, but it's not thin enough like tissue paper to fully tear and dissolve and rip. It's just slightly stronger. And as you can see, this is the back, so it's just got, you can see the design but there's nothing there, and then this is the front of the design, and as you can see, the carbon, you should just be able to see it, is printed very thinly on the paper. And this way of doing a stencil is very different from hand stenciling. So as you can see, there's hardly any carbon on this paper, it's very thin layer. Whereas when you hand stencil you get a very, very thick layer, and I did show you last week, I don't actually know where that stencil's gone now, I think I've thrown it away, but as I did show you on last week's video, if you were to compare this, which I might show you next week, or just do another one next week to show you if you want to see, but if you compare how thin the layer of carbon is on this, so I can even run my finger over it and I'm getting nothing off there at all. It has to be wet to get anything off, that's how thin the layer is. If you were to do that with a hand stencil, then just doing that, you would get it all over your finger, smudge the stencil, everything. It leaves such a thick layer on, which is good and bad. It's bad because then when you're actually putting the stencil on, it's likely to bleed. All the stencil lines will bleed and kind of look blurry. Your stencil will be a bit more difficult to follow, or you have to redo it. Also, it's a good thing in a way because when you're practicing on fake skin, you can't with this, you can't really reuse your stencil because it's so thin, but with the hand stenciling you can reuse about 2 to 3 times depending on how thick a layer it's got on there, but it can bleed easy, so that's a downside. So yeah, I have got various ones of these, and I've kept them because they're my very first stencils from my designs done in a proper studio, and I was just really proud of them. I just wanted to keep them, even though it's not my favourite designs. But I have actually brought the ones that I did actually apply as stencils onto the fake skin. Those pieces of fake skin are in the studio, so I can't actually show you those, but I brought the stencils, the used stencils, back to show you a comparison. I'm just trying to find similar sizes. I think this is a similar size, closest one anyway. So this is an unused stencil. Look how sharp the lines are. This is the carbon side facing you, and this one is a used stencil. As you can see, it is not much different, but if you look carefully, it's very, very slightly blurry. There you go, hold them up together. Very slightly blurry as it's been wet. You can tell with the shape of the paper and the texture that one's been used. Normally you'd obviously just throw it away, but as it wasn't on a person and it was just on fake skin, then it's got no contaminants for bodily fluids or anything on, so it's fine. We use gloves and everything just in case, so I mean it wouldn't get blood on obviously, but just as a practice of how you would apply it wearing gloves and everything. You can kind of see here on Pikachu's ear a bit more that it's gone blurry, but that's just what happens. But I'd never actually applied a stencil from this kind of stencil before. I've only ever done from the handmade stencils, so that was very interesting doing that. Another thing, I'll just put them there. Another thing before I do the questions is I think I told you last week that I'm doing an art piece. Potentially I want to keep it at home. I may sell it if someone really wants it, or potentially put it in my studio space once I get one. It's this that I drew, and I wanted to enlarge it, so I've drawn a grid over it, and I'm just working my way through each of the squares to enlarge it onto the canvas. So it is, I can show you actually, one second. Do it like this. You can see it a little bit better now. It's a chrysanthemum. When I was drawing it, the pens kept running out, so yeah, it's a chrysanthemum, and these shaded squares are where I've worked through already to copy my design and enlarge it. So what that now looks like is this. I can hold it up now. So I drew a grid on my canvas, and I have just been copying the design on here, and it will spread I was going to have it coming up and have a lot of negative space here, but I've decided that I want it to fill most of the canvas, and then I'm just going to add in the gaps the sort of like a cooler background and have a warmer flower. But I might actually practice, and I may change that round, I'm not sure. And of course, just like I told you about last week, we'll be using the colour wheel, which I already know, but just I showed you this last week, it might help you, using the colour wheel to find complementary colours and things like that to make it really pop. I've also got somewhere anyway, essentially it's like fishing line to sew some crystals on. I have this that I'm going to be applying. It's like, I showed you last week, but it's like a gold leaf. All that's going to be added on when I get some time to just keep chipping away at it, and then I will show you the finished piece. So, oh, and to go with that as well, I was out today and and I walked past this charity shop, which I go in sometimes, and I saw this piece, and I thought, well, that is for 4 photographs. It's like, you have over a baby's cot, you have a mobile spinning away. This is a copper wire version of that, but instead of having teddies or anything like that hanging down, it has those little crocodile clips to clip pieces of paper or photographs. It's just one of those kind of display things, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, I can do something with that. So I've got loads of crystals. I did say in one of my other streams I used to make crystal grids for people, and I really enjoyed it, and I would love to start doing that again. Just extra, it would be nice. But yeah, I've still got loads and loads of crystals, and I could pretty much open a little shop of my own if I wanted. But I just saw this mobile and I thought, oh, that'd be amazing to do something with the crystals and with that. I've not decided exactly what, but that to go along with my picture, potentially as a display piece or 2 display pieces for either my future studio space. I'm not sure if I can have a mobile in there though. I'll see. I don't know. Maybe, depends where I get put, if there's a safe area to put it. If not, at home, or could even sell it, I don't know. So, right, okay, let's get on to the questions. So, in no particular order, I just went through everything and wrote them down. So the first one is, how long have you been an apprentice? I'm not actually sure. I didn't write answers for these in advance. I thought I'd just come out and say it. So I started my apprenticeship this year, I think I believe it was either the end of May or the beginning of June. I'm not 100% sure, but around then, so only a few months, maybe what is it now? So we say like the start of June. So you've got July, August, September. So just under 4 months ish. End of May, start of June. So like 4-ish months. Not very long at all. Not done loads. I mean, I have, but I haven't as well. So that's how long, just like not even half a year at this point. By Christmas or the end of the year, my mentor hopes for me to be tattooing on fake skin, and then moving on to real people in the studio, and then in the new year, so that'll be about, if you call it 4 months now, about 6 months time from the beginning of my apprenticeship, and then sort of around the 7-8 month mark probably would be, so around February next year, actually have paying clients potentially if I do well, with, I assume they're free tattoos. So yeah, if you're local to me, I will probably be doing free tattoos or extremely discounted ones coming up, so I will let you know when that is if you're interested. So yeah, how long did I, okay, so the next question is, what is an apprenticeship? How long is it? You know, why is it different from different apprenticeships and courses and things? Well, an apprenticeship is the same as a normal apprenticeship. It's where you go to a place and, you know, you're sort of working on the job to learn something, and usually you get paid a smaller wage, or depending on how they pay you, you get paid a smaller amount per hour than you would if you were actually an employee working there. Apprenticeships tend to be for people that are school, kind of between school leavers and college age in the UK, that kind of a thing. People that want to get straight into a hands-on career or of some kind, they tend to go and do, it's instead of voluntary work really, or like a placement, it's like a small paid version of that. And usually with an apprenticeship, the company or whoever it is that is running the apprenticeship for you can apply for a government grant, because you usually would get a qualification at the end, which means that that's where they would get paid to teach you essentially, and then that's where you would normally get like a small amount of pay yourself for it. So you usually come out at the end of an apprenticeship with some kind of qualification, depending on where you're going for your apprenticeship. That's what an apprenticeship is. How a tattoo apprenticeship works is different, because there is no regulation really in tattooing. It was built off crime, basically. It was built off a big sort of like crime, biker gang kind of history. I'm not going to go into all of it now. I can do a stream where I go over this if you want as well to know the history, but basically it was built on crime and the funding from that. So it's not regulated in the same way that you would expect from a lot of other industries, and that's why it's very, very different going into it. That's why, because it's not regulated, you have to self-regulate for things like your safety, for your practices. You do obviously have to do basic health and safety, but you don't actually get as many checks as you would think that you would from outside the industry. So for example, if you even just say you got a piercing, you're more likely to have a lot of or even a cafe or something, you're more likely to have a lot more sort of call-ins from officials for checking health and safety measures and things like that than you would as a tattooist, because maybe the premises would get checked, and then they may check you potentially, but you have to, because you're self-employed, you have to sort of regulate yourself. So because it's not a regulated industry, there is no course, there is no qualification, there is no set standard for passing an apprenticeship, for becoming a tattooist. There is nothing formal really like you would for college or uni or any kind of education like that. There is nothing that you can walk out of wherever you're learning in, whichever studio, and just go, hey, now I'm qualified, because you're not qualified, you just have more experience and time and your skills get better. That's essentially it. So because you don't get a formal qualification, there is no pay. That's how it's different from a regular apprenticeship. There's no formal qualification, you don't get paid. Some studios may sort of employ you as like the studio apprentice, or give you other jobs to do like the reception desk or something, and they may pay you a small amount for that, but it's not going to be the same as an actual apprentice, as standard apprenticeship, because they can't apply to the government for a grant because they don't qualify for it, because you don't get a formal certificate of education of any kind at the end. You don't get a qualification. So that's how it's different, pretty much. So most apprenticeships to learn tattooing are unpaid, and I would recommend, unless what happened to me happens to you, try and get as much money saved up beforehand as possible, because you will need it. But yeah, it's not always possible to do that. So yeah, on to the next question then. What do you learn? Well, just what do you learn? So what do you learn on an apprenticeship as a tattooist? You basically just learn how to tattoo, how to do it safely, how to be clean and hygienic, how to create designs that work and flow on certain parts of the body, how to people manage for things like looking after your clients. You are classed as self-employed. I mean, I haven't learned all this yet, obviously, but you're classed as self-employed, so I would assume that you also get some kind of information to help you, you know, with how you would do things like your taxes, and maybe advice on to get an accountant and how to manage yourself that way. Yeah, that kind of stuff. That's what you learn in general, is the art of tattooing, how you use those tools, the machine, the needles, the ink, safely to create artwork on people's skin. So everything that you would need for that, even things like how to put on and take off gloves, how to clean your workstation, how to set your workstation up, which means how to sanitize it, and how to lay out on the table surface that you're working from all your inks and everything else that you need, like your green soap and things like that, and your sprays, and depending on each artist they use slightly different things, so there's not actually a set list, but you'd have stuff, in general you'd have your cleaning fluid for the skin whilst you're tattooing. So my mentor uses a green soap that smells like bubblegum, and it's pink, so it's diluted in a little squeezy bottle container, and it's then cling film wrapped, so that, because it's already sterilized, so that when you touch it you're only touching the outer layer of the cling film, and that when your gloves could be covered in ink and the person's blood and things like that, so it's not going to contaminate the actual bottle. So then all your other equipment is wrapped as well, so you've got your actual machine will be wrapped in cling film and then wrapped in grip tape, which is essentially, you know, the stretchy one of these, actually I've got one from when I pulled my leg. It's actually like, you know, the stretchy bandages, sorry, that you can get that stick to themselves. So it's wrapped in that usually, but like I said, different artists use different things. I can just tell you what my mentor uses. You'll have your I'm not really sure what you would call it. They don't call it different things. It's like a lubricant or glide, or basically some people use things like Vaseline, some people use other products. My mentor uses cocoa butter, and what that is it's the sort of like well, it's like the lubricant. Like you put it on the back of your hand, and then you know, gloved hand, and then you take a bit off and you'll rub it on the skin, and that helps this part of your hand to glide down as you're tattooing and doing lines and things. And then also it's used to soothe the skin and create like a barrier. Imagine you've got a burn on your hand or an open wound, and then you sort of like, say if you burn your hand, you straight away, oh, you know, you cover it, wouldn't you? You kind of instinctively trying to create a barrier to stop the air getting to it and making it feel like it's stinging, so that kind of thing. So everything else that goes on your station, you'll learn that kind of thing, how to set all that up, and then how to tattoo effectively, cleanly, safely, doing your designs, manage yourself, manage your finances, manage your customers, how to clean down your station, and you'll learn parts of the history, you'll learn different styles, loads of different things. I haven't even got into all of it myself, so as I learn, you know, keep watching my streams and I will be teaching you. Another one is how do I get an apprenticeship? I've always loved tattoos and drawn, and something that I'd like to do. So in one of my previous streams I've also shown you my portfolio, which I've got here. It's not the best one because I actually threw it together. If you watched one of my earlier ones, you'll see I went through the story of how I got my apprenticeship, but in detail. But yeah, I literally threw it together the night before going to see my mentor. So it's just a folder of designs, you know, drawings that I've done, that kind of thing. I go through it, everything design by design, and I've saved it to my YouTube, so you can go and watch that if you're interested. But yeah, how do you get one? I would definitely make a portfolio of designs. I gave some tips on it on, like I said, on my other stream, but quickly, you want to do a variety of designs. You want to do realistic designs, you want to like drawings, you want to do try and do some flash designs, try and do some in different media, if you can do any painting, if you can do any with pencils, any with pens, you know, just show your line work in it, and then organize it into, I did it in different categories in my portfolio. So you went from designs and flash designs and things with flashes of colour here and there, to realistic at the back. But there's no set sort of way to do it, but just make sure that they're some of your best pieces of work, or if what happened to me happens to you, just find everything good that you've got and put it together in one folder the night before. But I would recommend trying to build up over time a really good portfolio, like you would try and do a really good CV that showcases all your best sort of talents and qualifications and things like that. You want to be doing that, but with your artwork. And the ideal way to get one is to pester people, but also don't annoy them, and that's really hard to do. So I can't advise you on the correct way, because how I got mine is not how you would ever usually get one. And I've spoken to a few other people and they have different stories as well, but in general, and I did ask for advice as well for the usual way off them, and these are tattooists themselves, by the way, that I asked. So the majority sort of answer that I've got for that was to obviously build your portfolio, and then to find a tattooist that you like, especially if they've taken on apprentices before, or if the studio has, or if they've got a good reputation. Go and get work done by them and get chatting to them and friendly as much as possible. Just befriend them as much as possible, or their friends, or that kind of thing. Just get known by them and friendly, and sort of explain to them at some point when you feel comfortable. Don't just take your folder in and go, oh, I want an apprenticeship, have a look. Just get to be friendly, get to know them, take your folder in, either keep it with you in case they ask to see it, or only take it in if they ask to see it. But sort of let them know and hint to them that I really love what you guys do. I'd love to be able to do that one day. I've been interested in it for, you know, however long. And a good way of getting them to look at your portfolio is to say, I've been doing some artwork. I'd love for you to have a look at it. You know, if any spaces ever do come up, I'd love for you to consider me, but at the very least, could you look at my work and just give me some advice on it? You know, are there any bits that you think I could improve on, anything like that? You want them to look at your work and you want them to criticize the hell out of it, I found, because then that helps you make it better. And then once it's better, and they keep seeing it over and over again, they're going to remember you, and if that opportunity does come up, they're going to see that you've taken criticism and you've done something good with it, and they're probably likely to, if you keep showing that you're interested, to ask to sit down with you and chat about it. So yeah, that's how I would advise you to get one. Other stories that I've had from other artists are that they have known friends of the tattooist that they wanted to work with or be taught by, and that friend has introduced them. So it's good to kind of know them and maybe know places to hang around. Don't stalk them, but kind of also be around and show that you're interested, but not too much that it annoys them. Yeah, so that's my advice to you, is build up a good portfolio of work. Show it. If you've got social media as well, be posting about it all the time. You know, showcase your work, have your portfolio built up, try and get to know the studio, get some work done, know the artist, let them know in hints, you know, that you're interested. Try and get them to look at your work with what I've just said. If you know their friends, try and get their friends to get you in. Pretty much just pester them, but don't annoy them so they tell you to leave. Because it's not like a job. You don't have an application. Sometimes places will advertise and say we're looking for an apprentice. Then do all your best work, send the photos in, or arrange to go in and see them like you would for a job interview. But apart from that, you pretty much just have to pester for it and keep asking, or you don't get anywhere. But that's not what happened to me. So that leads on to my next question, which is the person was asking how I got my apprenticeship. So like I said, I covered this on a previous stream, but very quickly. The studio where I'm at now, I moved from my home city to this one, and it's a studio that I've been looking at for a while. I'd looked at a few, but I didn't look at it specifically to get an apprenticeship. I looked at it to just go to. I liked some of the artists' work, you know, but I never really had enough. I never really got around to going. They had a Halloween party and I wanted to go to it, but the job I was working at the time, I worked late nights, so I couldn't go to it. So I never actually got a chance to go to the studio first. I never got a chance to meet anyone. I never got any work done by anyone. I pretty much just stalked them on Instagram and liked everything, and not with the intent of, oh, I want you to pick me if something comes up. I just genuinely just like some of the stuff, and it's just one of the studios that I did interact with, but it's the one that I interacted with the most. Anyway, so every now and then from them and other studios, you'd see posts about, you know, position for an artist and has to have so many years experience, you know, message them to apply or email or whatever. And sometimes I'd comment, you know, on posts like this saying I wish it was an apprentice position and stuff like that, but you know, never really ever got replies, didn't expect any. And it happened with this studio. They actually put a post up saying that there were positions available for artists that were already, I think it was like 3 years qualified. So I just commented on the same kind of thing that I've done before a few times and on other studio pages, saying, you know, something along the lines of, oh, I wish this was a learning position, or shame it's not a learning position, or I would have applied. And that was in the morning before I went to work. I didn't expect anything of it, like I said, because I've done it loads of times before. And yeah, when I finished work that evening, I'd received a message, but I hadn't received a message from the studio. I received a message from a tattooist, and I thought, oh, maybe it's someone just saying hi, and maybe I followed the page. And I had a look, and they worked at that studio, so I was like, oh, what's going on? So I clicked on it, and the message was that they'd seen my comment and that they'd been thinking about taking on an apprentice for a while, and they would love to know if I'd be interested in having a chat with them about it. So completely not the conventional way of getting an apprenticeship at all, because from there obviously I said yes, because I'm getting older and I've not had an offer before, and pretty much just took it straight away. So I just said, yes, yes, whenever you want, I'll come in, yes. And then, like I said, the night before, threw my portfolio together, went in to see him, and that was the start of my apprenticeship. But then I didn't officially start until I think it was a week or two after that day, because he'd gone on holiday or something. There were plans already in the way anyway, and then I started. So I was walking into the studio being offered an apprenticeship by someone I'd never met, never had any work done, never been in the studio, and it seems to have worked out, but that is not how it ever really happens, and I'm still not quite sure to this day how that actually happened. But just by chance he saw my comment and thought, oh right, well, let's have a look at their work and everything, let's meet them and see, let's give it a go. So I was very lucky. That's not how it's supposed to happen. So yeah, that's how I got my apprenticeship. How long are they free, or how much? So an apprenticeship is a minimum of 1 year. Some people do shorter ones, generally if they've already got some kind of experience, but generally it's at least a year. There's no set time frame for it, so it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years. I think the studio owner for where I am right now said that they had an apprentice once who was apprenticing for over 5 years, or he'd been in another studio and seen that. I can't quite remember, but that's considered a very long one. So from what I've gathered from asking around for this, because obviously I am not even halfway through, I'm not even 6 months in yet. So from what I've gathered from all the answers that I've got off people pestering them, the average apprenticeship is between 2 to 3 years, or between 1 and 3 years, depending on how quickly you learn, how quickly you pick it up. Some people just click with it, some people don't. So it depends on you, but also your mentor, how they're teaching you, because if they're rubbish at teaching you, you're going to be really slow at doing it. You might even give up. So yeah, that's how long it is. Is it free? I've already covered this in a previous question. It is generally free. My apprenticeship, I am paying nothing to be taught, so I am getting taught for free. But there is a cost in other ways. So obviously my cost to that is that I have had to give up 2 days of work a week to be able to attend. So I'm potentially losing shifts and losing money to go there. I don't get paid. I'm having to pay to travel there. I'm having to, at the moment, between me and my mentor, we're purchasing things for me to learn with. So is it free? Yes, generally they are. There are some places that want to charge people, which I've asked a few artists that are already, qualified and experienced, and they've said generally stay away from that, because it could be seen as, I forget the term they used, but do you know when you just sort of like, you just throw people out really quick, like as a quick turnover, that's it. And then they're just used as money makers. Some places maybe not, maybe they charge you a little bit to help cover material costs, and they're actually really nice. I don't know, but for me, my experience is I don't get paid anything. It's not a paid position, but I'm also not paying to learn, so both ways it's free. And how much? If you were to have to pay, if you ended up in a position where you were paying the studio to learn, I have no idea. That could be thousands. I have no idea. I know there are places claiming to do tattoo courses, even just like crash courses in it. I originally, when I was teaching myself, would have looked at something like that as a potential. But now, being in an apprenticeship, being in a studio, you don't need to do that. You can literally learn for free. It is slower, but then you're building up your experience in an actual studio in the building, which is something that you cannot get learning at home and online. You can't get it. It's completely different. So it is free, yes. It's around 1 to 3 years, and you shouldn't be paying for it. You shouldn't have to. But yeah, it's up to you if you want to go and do one of them courses or whatever, but you don't need to. Next question. Why do you have to have an apprenticeship? Why do you have to have an apprenticeship? Can't I just teach myself? Yes, you can. You can, and that's what I started doing. You can teach yourself. You can be quite effective at it, and there are some really famous artists that are self-taught. There's quite a few. You can. It is a lot slower. It is a lot harder to get a placement in an actual studio. It is a lot harder to be more legal because you have to have a license from your local council. Over in the UK, I'm not quite sure anywhere else, but in the UK your local council has to license you, and the license is the same as if you were a piercer. Anything that breaks the surface of the skin, and it could be the same for someone doing, say, lip fillers, anything like that, anything that's piercing the skin with a needle of any kind. You have to have a license from your local studio, from your local council, and it has to be you have to be licensed in a premises, and the premises usually has to have, you know, like the basics of health and safety. It has to be clean, has to have hot running water, good electrics and things like that, you know. So you can teach yourself, but you won't be able to get licensed and get in a place. And if you manage to get really good at it from teaching yourself, unless you're very lucky and get very friendly with someone that owns their own studio, it's going to be very hard for you to get into a studio. You might get lucky and do it, you might not. That's where the problem lies, is you don't get the studio experience, and it's hard to get into one after, because you kind of look down on when you teach yourself. And like I said, I started teaching myself, and another reason why it's very hard is because it's slow, and the reason why it's very slow is because you don't know what you need to know. You're teaching yourself something that you have no experience of. You don't know what you have to teach yourself. You know, yeah, okay, I have to be able to tattoo. I'm going to have to get a machine, and I'm going to have to get inks, and I'm going to have to get needles and that, and be a bit clean. Yeah, you can probably figure that out, but do you know how to do the techniques? Do you know where to go to look for that? Yeah, you've got YouTube, you know, Twitch, YouTube, you've got, you know, Google searches, all sorts of things. You can do what I did and follow people on social media that show them doing their work, like little videos of close-ups of it, and that's how I learned to do some techniques from that, you know, that I've memorized and I practiced on some of the fake skin that I showed you earlier. So yeah, you can teach yourself. It is possible. You will probably get looked down on from studios if you try to apply to work in them, unfortunately, because they kind of class you as the term is called a scratcher, and if you're classed as a scratcher, then it's kind of a bad reputation, really, because they just assume that you're just doing tattoos unsanitary, like on your kitchen table or something. You know, it's, you know, when you see videos of people online, and they're just not wearing gloves and they're drunk doing it and all of that. That's kind of how you get seen, even if you're not, even if you've got your own little room at home, your own studio space, and it's all super sanitary and it's just as clean as a studio. That's what you get classed like. So yeah, you can teach yourself. There are resources out there. I'm hoping to kind of be one as well, because I didn't really know where to go to find information or have someone that I could watch that would explain stuff like I'm doing to you. So you can, but why do you need one? You need one for proper practice, proper information. It's faster because not only have you got your mentor, you've got an entire studio of people to pester that have experience and qualifications. You can look around. If your mentor's doing something or you want a bit of a break from watching them, you can just go to the next person and go up and ask them what they're doing, why are they doing that. So there's a lot more information out there for you to soak up like a sponge, and you get to see what the studio is like. You get to see how they lay everything out for the stations. You get to obviously physically set up the stations and all of that, which you can do when you're learning at home, but it's not the same. You won't have the same kind of equipment. If you do, good for you, but not going to be the same. You know, you can see, you know, what kind of supplies do they have to order, you know, how they store things, you know, how they keep it sanitary, what kind of procedures they do, how they greet customers, how they deal with customers. You can actually see the customers in there and watch them tattooing the customers and see how they do the chit chat with them, how they handle them. You can all of it. It is definitely a lot better, and you need one because you miss out on all that experience when you teach yourself. You can do so much, because I did teach myself a fair bit, but then, like, my issue is now I'm going into an apprenticeship and I've already taught myself to a degree, and I have to unlearn pieces of that to relearn how they do it, how they're supposed to do it, because not necessarily what I've learned is wrong, it's just not their way of doing it, or their way is more efficient and that kind of thing. So yeah, you can teach yourself, but you need an apprenticeship really to do a better job of it quicker, and have better all-round knowledge. Next question, what do you get at the end of your apprenticeship? Nothing. You get absolutely nothing in terms of a qualification, a paper, a certificate, anything like that. You get absolutely nothing, but what you do get is knowledge and experience. And by the time you finish your apprenticeship, if I'm comparing it to what I've been told for mine, what's upcoming, then you should have obviously experience of doing tattoos, and you should have experience of doing them on people, and you should have started to build up your client base by the time that you finish your apprenticeship. So generally, like I said, between 1 and 3 years is the average for an apprenticeship. It looks like mine's going to be around a year if I do well, which is kind of fast if you look at the whole 1 to 3 years thing. So at the end of it, you should feel confident doing tattoos. You should be able to do them cleanly, well. You should have a few clients already. Even if they're not returning clients, you should have already had some clients. You should have the knowledge of how to manage yourself and everything else that I've already mentioned, but you don't actually get any qualification at the end. You just get experience, and you're signed off, but you're not actually signed off paperwork wise. You just kind of finished your initial apprenticeship when your mentor sees that you can do everything well, and you're confident, and not that you don't need their help anymore and that you've learned everything, because it is an ongoing career where we just learn, you just constantly learn, and you will be asking people for advice even as an experienced artist throughout your career. You know, if you don't, and from what I've gathered watching people in the studio, experienced artists are still asking questions, opinions of the other artists. What do you think's best for this or that? You know, and they're learning new things all the time. So if you're not actually learning anything or asking any questions even after finishing your apprenticeship, then you're doing something wrong, you know. So it's not that you don't need your mentor anymore in that sense. You will always be asking questions and learning, but you don't need them in the sense of they shouldn't have to stand over you and, you know, baby you, and, you know, you're capable to do them by yourself efficiently, but they are around. So after your apprenticeship, however long you take to do it, after your apprenticeship there's a stage called junior. So if you think about it like learning to drive, okay, you learn to drive a car, you have your provisional license, you know, so that says you're a learner, you do all your lessons, you do your theory test, you do your practical test, you've passed. So your whole like section of you learning to drive, doing your lessons, and then, you know, then your test is compared to an apprenticeship, you learning on your apprenticeship, and then your test bit at the end is when you start to get your clients. Okay, so great, you've passed, amazing, you've passed your driving test. What happens after that? Well, you're supposed to wear pass plates, because it's saying that yes, I can drive, but for my first year or so or whatever, I'm very new to it, so just bear with me. That's essentially what being a junior artist is. It's the past plate version of the tattoo industry. So you've done your apprenticeship, you've done it successfully, you've done your first tattoo successfully, your mentor thinks you're ready to go out into the world, all of that. So then what happens? You're then no longer an apprentice, you're then a junior artist. So that means that, hey, I can do stuff by myself, I don't need to be constantly supervised, I am very new to the industry, so I am basically like an apprentice that is unsupervised and capable. I'm very new, I'm still learning, I'm still going to take a while to get fully used to it. I'm going to be maybe still a bit slow at doing the pieces, that kind of thing. And you tend to not be on the full hourly rate of whichever studio you're at, tend to have a set hourly rate as a minimum. So you tend to be, as an apprentice, you do a few free tattoos and then you can start charging, but you'll be on a lower pay per hour. Then as a junior you can put your price up a little bit, and then after being a junior for so long, I'm not actually sure what the time frame is to be a junior. I think they said 1 to 2 years depending on how well you do, but I haven't got to that stage yet. I will try and ask for that actually, because I only got told a little bit, but I assume that it's similar to like your apprenticeship, where you have a general time frame, and then after a while of so much experience you can just be an artist, you don't have to be a junior anymore, and then I guess you could put your price up again if you want or whatever. But another thing that people don't really mention a lot is at the end of your apprenticeship at a studio, it is common courtesy, as long as they're not a horrible place that's treated you really badly, is that they have taught you for free and spent their time and resources and everything teaching you over however long your apprenticeship was. It is a common courtesy to stay with that studio for at least while you're a junior, or at least a year after, like I said, unless it's a really horrible place and you have to get out, or you're moving or something happens, you tend to, it's kind of expected for you to stay there to sort of bring money back into the studio and as a thank you for them teaching you, which is why most places are very careful who they pick, because they're then part of the team kind of long term. So yeah, that's the end of those general questions about apprenticeships and that I got. A lot of them were repetitive, so I just picked 1 or 2 out of the few that I got. I've covered things like the license and everything that you need to know about. Other stuff is, I just got a couple of questions about me and the setup. It's not a proper setup. I'm in effectively like the corner of my room. I got asked what is this? That was one of the questions. What is the star thing pattern next to you? This is the bottom of a dress. This section here, right above there is a rail on my wall. It's really nice actually. It's like this black industrial pipe that kind of goes like this, and it's just a rail because it's in my room. This is like my wardrobe kind of essentially, and this is just a really long dress that I've not had a chance to wear out yet, and I've eaten too many cakes and pizzas and it is not very flattering and stretchy material, so I can't actually comfortably put that on. But and also it's been really warm, so it's that kind of like that silky material that it can get a bit warm in. So I'm hoping, me and my partner are trying to lose a bit of weight at the minute, so when I'm hoping I get to wear that before the end of the year, and fit into it nicely. So that's the dress. Another question I got was, what is, well, pretty much all background stuff. So this, I'll just tell you, rather than keep reading the questions out, people just want to know about the background. So yeah, corner of the room, this is my desks in front of me. So I've got a desk here which has got my drawing stuff on, and then this way is a desk with my PC on. On the wall up here I've got shelves that in my old streams you'll probably see because I had a different layout. It's got things like books on, figures. On the corner on the wall on this side it's things like pens. It's a little shelving unit with pens on and things like that. I may do a stream where I sort of show you around a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, behind me, these drawers here, they're actually from IKEA, and they're full of crystals. A couple of other knickknacks as well, but they're full of various crystals. If you really want to see it in a stream, let me know, and at some point I will go through the drawers with you and show you all the crystals if you want. If it's not really tattoo related, but I guess we can do some drawings of crystals and make it tattoo related. I don't know. Yeah, down here, this is just a small little canvas in a frame that needs sticking in the frame that I was going to do a piece on. This behind it is a card from a lady on Instagram. Her business is called The Crafty Burrito. Really cool, spooky. I recommend. I'll try and get it out. Hold on. I recommend you give her a look. Really nice stuff. It says "Simply Made to Be," and she's made that herself. So yeah, that's from The Crafty Burrito. So yeah, that's just a card. I'd sometimes have it turned around, sometimes I don't. What is this? Got asked. This is, I believe you call it perler beads. You know, where you put the beads together on the grid and then you melt it. That was just a little mushroom that I made there. We've got a few around the place. Not very good at it. Some of them have fallen apart, but I've been learning how to do it better, and I've still kept all the beads. So I may do some more in the future, but that's just that. I've just stuck it on there. This is a shelf that I need to put up in the corner of the room, and I haven't, so that's there. This is a pyramid figure. The top comes off, as you can see, and it all looks like this, like shiny mirror kind of mosaic stuff, and you can put stuff in the middle section and the bottom section. This is just a vanity case. It's got incense in and incense cones and things like that. Underneath it's just a box painted up with leaves. Under that is a series, I've got this way, you might be able to see it better, sorry, is a series of books, which I'll go through with you in another stream when I pull a load of drawing materials out and recommendations and things like that. So they'll be coming out in the future. Just some candles. This one's got crystals in it that I still can't get no matter how much I burn this down, so I may just dig them out eventually. What else have we got? This is a book, and it's called A Gift for a Ghost, and that was a Christmas present, and it's basically a story. I'll try and get it and show you. It's a story there, you can see who it's by. It's about time travel. So basically it's two stories in one, where a girl from the future and a girl from the past, their stories sort of like intertwine, and it's illustrated like a comic book. That's really nice, interesting. They intertwine, they interact with each other, and it's kind of like, do you know where some people think that ghosts are just sort of like people in another dimension, but they just appear to us like ghosts because they can't communicate properly, or we might appear to them like ghosts, and you know, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like a story with that idea, but it's over time, not quite in different dimensions. So they're interacting with items that are found and shapes, and I don't want to spoil it for you really. It looks kind of weird. It is a bit of an odd book, but their stories interact over time, and it's kind of like they're the same girl, and they go around this lake, and they find objects and things that sort of explain the girl from the past sees stuff from the future, and the girl from the future finds the girl from the past stuff. So that's the girl from the future. She's very antisocial. She likes to run around like a ghost, and she's in a band and things like that. And then that's the girl from the past. So I would recommend reading it. It's a very short read, but it's very nice. And the style is really nice. I like the look of it. So that's just that really, just a book that I've got. Yeah, not much else there. It's just behind that is my bed. So this is like all on drawers, and yeah, just kind of just makeshift corner for now. I've had this layout done quite a few different ways, and it's probably going to be changing in a bit, but this is pretty much the only way that I could get a proper drawing space and a proper PC gaming space in one area that was out of the way of everything else. So yeah, that's it really. And then in front of me on here, I've got my fold up drawing board for on top of the table. I've got some ring lights here that you can see, like the shadow of it here. I've got ring lights, I've got a little light here. Yeah, and that's it pretty much. That is everything. So yeah, I think I've covered everything I wanted to today. I've gone over a little bit longer than I normally do. Not really sure what to do for next week's stream. Again, some people send messages through for ideas, so if you've got an idea, if not, I will think of something, and I'm going to be back on Tuesday evening. Yeah, so I will catch you up then. I've not been in the studio today because my mentor has been on holiday, and also I've not been feeling great the last few days, like I said, so it's probably a good thing. I'm back in on Friday. I won't be working on the fake skin because the stencil does need to dry for quite a while, so he said it may be a few weeks before that's sort of done and I can show you anything. I'll put pictures up on my Instagram of it or anything like that. So I think it would just be back to the usual setting up for him, watching him tattoo a client, taking notes, drawing. I'm trying to do most of my drawing at home and just some quick sketches of ideas in the studio, unless he wants me to draw them on his iPad, in which case I do that then. But yeah, I tend to try and do a lot of drawing at home, and instead of spending hours and hours every night to try and do it, I'm going to try and do either small pieces of the designs, so like an hour a night, or just on the times after the studio, like a Tuesday evening and a Friday evening, do essentially like my homework then, because I need some more me time and some more time with my partner. So we're going to try and figure out a new routine. We had someone staying with us and they're not here now, so there's a bit more space and everything, and we're going to just try and, like I said, do a new routine. We're trying to get in shape a bit more, all that kind of thing. I will let you know if I do ever get to wear the dress. I may wear it on a stream when I can finally fit into it again, and surprise you all. But yeah, that's it for this week. Thanks to everyone that's been watching. Like as usual, I post a lot of stuff on my Instagram. I'll be posting the stream on my YouTube channel, which is purely just there to just save the streams, because I'm not a YouTuber. I don't know how to edit things. But yeah, maybe in the future. So yeah, if you ever missed anything that goes off here, go on my YouTube channel, it'll be on there. I post most of the time daily, or well, not daily, but quite a lot of the time on my Instagram, work that I'm doing. I am going to, actually this Saturday is the local tattoo convention, so I will be going to that, checking it out for the studio. It's their second one. Last year was their very first one. I want to see if it improves. I've got a goodie bag for it, so I'm going to see what bits I get in it, and I'll share that with you. I'll show you as well actually on Tuesday, and yeah, I'll let you know how that goes as well. So that's something I can definitely talk about on Tuesday. Maybe we'll talk about conventions. I might do that actually. Yeah, that'll be for next Tuesday. We'll talk about tattoo conventions as a general person, a customer going in, you know, going in, seeing the place, what to expect, what can you do, and then also from the side, kind of being in the industry. I'm not quite, obviously, but from that side of it, or now being an apprentice, how I look at it differently. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll tell you all about it next week, tell you about the other ones that I've been to, show you a few bits from them, what you can expect, and give you a catch up of anything else I've been up to. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you have a nice evening. Oh, thank you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day as well. Thanks. See you next week. Bye.